Hello, this is just going to be a short lecture on state management here. We're going to look at how to share information between different widgets, particularly widgets that are in different files or are far apart from each other, where it's not easy to just define a variable that can be stored between those two. So let's talk a little bit about how this is done. There's two sets of documentation I suggest you read. First, Flutter's documentation is pretty good here. And then there's this article, another article that's a little shorter that goes over this. To kind of motivate this, let's go back to, I'm going to scroll down here to our pizza order app. This is what we were talking about earlier in this unit. If you remember, we have a pizza order app. It mainly has a list of cards or list tiles that display pizzas that you order, and it has a button where you can add pizzas, and that button up here adds a pizza. And we looked at how to move all this code to display a dialog into its own file. So we added this add pizza dialog file, and this contains a bunch of the information, or the widget for laying out and selecting a pizza object, ordering a pizza. But now we want to share some information. We had a list of pizzas, the pizzas in the order. It was just a list, and we used that in our list builder here. We had to define how many items were in our list, so we use pizza order.length here. And we would, to display a tile, we'd use the pizza order and we'd get a pizza, or we'd display pizza at a certain position here. So we were using it there, but also in the add pizza dialog, when they actually selected the add button, we wanted to add a pizza to this list here. And this is because of how Dart passes parameters, we try to set this up so that when we called add pizza here, we would pass the list of pizzas there. But then when you pass an object as a parameter, it makes a copy of that object. So where we could add stuff to it here, when it came back, it wouldn't have been added to our pizza object here. And so we need to do a little better structure here, and so that's where we're getting into state management. So really we have these two classes, this add pizza dialog and our main Dart file, or in fact inside that, just this list view that both need access to the same pizza array of pizzas here. If you remember, we have a pizza object and we just have an array of those, or a list of those. So let's go back to our documentation here. So let's go to the Google Flutter official documentation, talks about state management, and they work out an example. So here what they have is they have a cart, maybe an array of or a list of orders or something like that to put from a catalog, and they want to share that around this app some. And so we talk about lifting up the state here and how we have to do it. So where we might have a list of items here and here, we might want to display in both places. What we want to do is we want to push that list, that variable or state, up into the highest shared parent. And often that might be the my app. There's always a root app to everything, so we might push that up to that location. And then we'll define the state kind of at that point. In order for this to work, we need an object to hold this state. Now we can have multiple state objects, but we want an object to hold this state. And right now we just have an array of, we were just declaring this list of pizza objects. So to kind of build on that, what we're going to make is a pizza order object. So we're just going to make pizza order, and it's going to have a list of pizzas. And then we're going to look at what we're going to need that to do. So we're going to need to get the number of items in that pizza order. We're going to need to get a particular pizza to display, and we're going to need to be able to add a pizza to that order. So in our pizza order, we just have a length method that returns the length of that array. We have a get pizza at some position, which will return the pizza at that position, and an add pizza, which just adds a pizza here. So we've created that. Now, in order to access this data and do some work with it, we've got to set up some stuff. So one thing it's noting is we use this provider method, and we need to put that in our dependencies. This is in our pubspec YAML file. So in our file over here, let me see if I can get over there again. Inside our project is a pubspec YAML file, and we've had to add this line to it and then rebuild it, do this pubget. That will import the required libraries we need for this. Then we use this change notifier, and so our data model has to extend change notifier, and that sets it up so that it can notify other widgets when its information changes, when its state changes in some ways. So we're going to set that up. So in our pizza order, we created that pizza order class here. We added this extends change notifier. And then that gives us access to one other object, and whenever we change this data, so like delete or add or change a pizza in our list, we have to call this notify listeners. Other objects may be listening to this or watching for updates and that. So the only place we do that is in this add pizza. We add a pizza thing, and then we call this notify listeners method. And that, once we have this extended, that's defined in this parent class. So that's how we notify the listeners here. So it talks about that, and it shows, it shows there doing that, and then here's their notify listeners, just like we did here. And then we have to decide where we want to access that data, and we have to add this change notify provider. And this has to be at a widget that is up higher, and this is kind of the key. If we look at this, this change notify listener, we put that widget up wherever we want the state change. So it has to be at a widget that's a parent of both of these other widgets here. And then we just, let's get back here. We just add that as a widget, and it has a create method and a child method. And so we had, the child method is just whatever widgets are underneath that. So again, going back in here, if we look at our main.dart file, we had this my homepage widget here, and then we have, and it will create this add pizza widget here. So we could look at that, but we're doing it inside this, so we want to go up one level above this. Here. So this is in this stateful widget. So we're going to go up to this stateless widget above this. And this stateless widget was just creating a homepage app here, which is this homepage app down here, widget here. And so we've added this change notifier around it here. So let's look a little bit at what that does. We just add this widget, change notify provider here, and then we say create, and then we specify what the object we want to create is, what our data model is. And we have to specify a context, and this is just, we're in a build, so we just have a context variable here. And then this is what we're going to call is pizza order. So that is the default constructor for this pizza order. So we'll just create one of these pizza order objects, which will create this list here. And then as a child, we put the old home page widget here. So basically what this was before was, this was just like, kind of like that here. Yeah, I'm going to have to change some delete another parenthesis, but that's what it was. And then we added this here. So my home page became a child of the change notify provider for this. Okay, so what that means is that any widget below this can access the pizza order. So this is shared between this. So again, going back in here, they moved the cart up here, and then so any of these widgets below this can access this cart object. So they talk about the change notify provider here. Here's their create method, and they're creating their cart object, and then they're calling my app here. Now they talk about multiple providers. We don't have to worry about that. And there's two ways of accessing this. One is through a consumer class, which is a little more complicated. We're not going to use that generally. And the other one is with the provider of object, and we'll often use that. So back to this. So this is this Flutter documentation on it. Here's another shorter article on it. That just this is by Flutter by example, which sometimes has some nice things. So here's their person class, and it's extending change notifier. And again, so it's going to call notify listener whenever this changes here. And then they should add a look at this change notify provider here. So they'll add this change notify provider here, and they're creating a person object here and setting that up. And then they'll be using, whenever they need to use that, they'll be using this provider.of, kind of a weird syntax here, but provider.of, and then you specify what object you want to access, and then you can do things about that. Okay, so that's kind of so let's look at how we're going to access the state here. So let's look in the main program. In the main program, we had a pizza order. Well, so we're going to declare a pizza order object here, and we're going to instantiate it right away. But this is actually going to be overwritten once we get going here. And so in here, inside our build method, we're going to call, we're going to set this pizza order to a new value, and we're going to say provider of pizza order. And so this will look up and try to track down wherever we have defined in the widgets above a change notifier with a pizza order in it. So it'll go find this change notifier with this pizza order and give us that object. So it's basically tying into this change notifier. So this provider of will look up in our widget tree and find the corresponding declaration for this pizza order. And so it's kind of a shared state between this. And then we have to, again, provide some context here so it knows where to find it in the widget tree. So this will just give us our pizza order and update it, and then we can just use that as if we declared this pizza order object directly. We can say pizza order.length, because in pizza order we've defined a length method here. We can call pizza order.get a pizza at some position, because we've defined that get pizza and it returns a pizza. And then once we're in that get that pizza, we can get its description also. So we can just access this where we had a list of pizza order. Now we're just instantiating that with this through this provider of method. Similarly, in the add pizza dialog method here, we want to grab that. So we don't need it very much. We don't need it in any of this stuff. We just need it down here. So when we're adding a pizza, we're creating a new pizza. And then we're just going to add to it. So we're just going to do this all on one line rather than create a variable and then do it. So we're just going to say provider of pizza order. And then again, we provide some context here. And here we're also going to state, since we're just going to add, we're not going to be listening for changes to this. So we're going to set listen to false. And this is just a common method that's done. You don't have to do this. It just optimizes the code a little bit. And this is when we're just updating the pizza, not this data, and not actually listening for changes to it here. And then this once we have this, it basically gives us this shared pizza object. It looks up in the widget tree, finds the pizza order that we declared, and we actually declared that again in the main environment here. It finds this change notify provider for the pizza order and finds that shared variable, basically. And then gives it to us, and then we just call the add pizza method of that for this. Okay, so that lets us add information to pizzas. Now I'm going to also have a couple videos here if you want to watch these for this, and here's the completed code available for us. This hasn't been around very long. In fact, this talk is where they're introducing it at the big Google I/O conference in 2019. And they give you a big history of state management and how Google struggled to figure out a way of doing it. It ended up working with a third-party one. And this is just another example of that. So hope you enjoy this.